Okay, this is the second lesson. I know we started last week, and because of the snow day and the tests, we couldn't get around to the second bit. So we are going to carry on with the study of exponents. Today, again, just like the previous lesson, is going to break into two videos. This is the first one, the negative and zero exponents. It's a very short lesson. Possibly this video may be like 10 minutes long. When it's done, understand everything you have in here, go on to Schoology, get that quiz done. Okay, should be very simple. And then we'll do the division after this. So, negative and zero exponents. As the name implies, we are talking about things that looks like this. If you remember, we are dealing with this is the exponents, this is the base, that's the exponents. Okay, so we are talking about, there are two scenarios we want to deal with today. So the first one is this. You may have your base over here. It could be a number, it could be something else, but this time we may have like a negative number over here. Alright, so some example, I'm just going to give you some examples. 10 to the negative 3 as an example, or we could have y to the power of negative 1. So we are dealing with this set of negative number, and exponents will come into many different forms, and eventually we are going to combine all of this together. That's when things get really tricky. While you're learning this individually as an item, it's really not too bad, right? You know, I'm going to talk about this in about 5 minutes time. You understand exactly what it means. However, when we combine everything, then it gets a little bit tricky. So, you know, by the end of this week, I think we're going to get to that part. So, the first scenario is, okay, we have negative numbers. Another scenario we are going to talk about is the zero exponents, just like before. This time, your exponents may be of a number, and this number in particular is going to be 0. Let's say I'm just going to use the base 5 over here. I could have a 0, I could have a negative 7 as the base, and the power, I'll put the parenthesis over there, just be nice, because sometimes it gets very confusing. To the power of 0, I could just use y again, to the power of 0. So these two things what we're going to deal with in this very short video. So let's talk about the very first one. That is negative exponents. So if you have a negative exponents, what you run into is something like this. Oops, cannot type. Let's say it's x to the power of negative 2. Now, starting from now on, if your answer, this is actually the answering stage. So when you get to the answer, you have x to the power of negative 2. You have to do one more thing. That is, you're going to convert that to 1 over x to the power of 2. Alright, so if you get to the answer, and I'll talk about how you may get to a negative number later on, if you get to the answer stage, that is what you're going to do. Okay, you're going to turn that into 1 over x to the power of 2. Basically, it's very similar to the reciprocal if you remember, right? So you basically put a 1 over here, you do the reciprocal, but you convert the exponents to a positive power. And the reason for that is, in math, exponents, we don't want the negative number. Especially when you get to the answer, it's just not the standard. The standard is you want something that's positive. Alright, so let's just give you some example. Let's say, example 1. You did some calculation, you somehow got to this part, negative 3. Okay, so you got to the answer is 5 to the power of negative 3. What you will have to do now is you carry on with one step. You're going to turn that into this one. Okay, 1 over 5 to the power of 3. And for this one, it's not too bad because 5 to the power of 3 is really doable. It's just basically 5 times 5 times 5, which is 25 times 5, which is 75, I think. So if your base is just a number and the exponents is not too bad, you can always use a calculator for it. If the base is actually a number, then you can convert that into the proper answer. So now I know 5 to the power of negative 3 actually is equal to 1 over 75. Okay? Let's put another example. Let's make it a little bit more tricky. So for example, I have something like this. X to the power of, let's just do negative 2 again. And then I have y to the power of 5. Alright, something like this. That is your answer. You get to there, you did some calculation, you somehow got this negative 2. What you need to do is, you understand that this part has to change. Because that's the one that's carrying the negative exponents. You know that you have to do something about it. However, if you look at the other one, 5, if it's positive, you don't have to do anything. So you have to understand when to do what. So in this scenario, what we are going to do is, the y to the power of 5 is a positive. We do not need to do anything. It's going to stay way over there. While this, with the negative 2, you know that you have to bring it down. So what you have to do is, you're going to change this to this. Basically, if you have a negative, you're going to bring it down or bring it up. I'm going to show you the very next example, what I mean by that. So when you see the negative, that's when you have to do something about it. Okay? So let's show you another example. Example 3. Now, what if the negative 2, I'm just going to carry on using this, you get to an answer, you get x to the power of negative 2. And I said earlier, when we get to the answer, we do not want the negative exponents. And in this scenario, you do have one. What are you going to do? What you do is, you basically move it up. So, the idea is, if you see a negative exponents, you are going to swap the location. Whether it's going to go up to the numerator or denominator, it depends on this. Okay, if it's a negative, you're going to swap that, you're going to bring it up. If it's at the bottom, if it's up top, you're going to bring it down. Let's just make it even more difficult. Okay, this time I have 2 variables and they're both negative. Negative 3 and negative 4. It's just some random numbers I came up with. Because both of them are negative, you're going to swap the location. So y is equal to y to the power of 4, x to the power of 3. Alright, so if you see that, if you see the negative, you are going to switch the location. Just keep that in mind when we did the slope, the negative reciprocal thing, that the reciprocal is just the same idea. You are going to switch the location of that variable. So let's make one that's a little bit more tricky. X negative 1, put a 4 over here, y to the power of 5, z to the power of, I don't know, negative 6. Alright, so if you get to the answer like this, you are going to switch the location. So let's see what I can switch. 4. Do I have a negative power? No. So that's going to stay. X with the negative power, I have to move this. Y to the power of 5, I do not have a negative power. This item is going to stay. Z to the power of negative 6, that is going to change. So before you dive in, that's what I would do. If I look at the answer, I noticed that, oh, okay, those are the negative numbers. I'm going to move them. So let's move them. So this whole thing, this whole expression, as I said, 4 is going to stay on top. Y5 is going to stay on top. X is going to go down. Z is also going to go down as well. Alright. Normally we will not write that 1 over there. You can safely remove that 1. X to the power of 1 is just the item itself, if you remember from last class. So that's basically the whole idea of this. And you may ask, like, how can we actually get to this scenario? Why would you get an answer? If it's an answer, that means there's some process going on to get to the answer. So we'll just use the idea we did last lesson. For example, I have two terms. I'm going to multiply them. That could be x to the power of 2. And then the other item is going to be 7, x to the power of, let's say, negative 3. Okay, that's the question. They give you this question and you are going to do the same thing like we did. The number are going to go together, so the 5 and the 7, we multiply them together, you get 35. And then your x item, because they have the same base, they're going to go together, so x, and when you're multiplying, it's just 2 plus a negative 3. That turns into 35. X, 2 minus 3, then 35, x to the power of negative 1. So that's what I said. You are going to run into a scenario like this. You are going to have a couple steps and you get to the answer, right? You get to this answer, but it's not done. Basically, that's what I'm trying to tell you. You have to do one more thing. 35, I don't have the negative power, is going to stay. X to the power of negative 1, we are going to move it down right over there. And that 1, we normally do not write it, so you'll just get this one. Alright? So that's the negative exponents. Negative exponents is, just to make sure you understand this, if you see a negative exponent starting from now on, you are going to switch the location of it. We do not want answer with negative exponents in there. Okay? They will mark it wrong. So you will not get that score. So keep this in mind. So negative exponents, we got that covered. Then we are just going to talk about x to the power of n when n is equal to 0. That is, when x to the power of 0, 5 to the power of 0, negative 7 to the power of 0, and so on. Now this one is much shorter because x to the power of 0, 1 to the power of 0, 5 to the power of 0, 723 to the power of 0. We'll just test this using a calculator. And we'll just do z to the power of 0, and hopefully we'll be able to do it. Get myself a calculator first though. Do we have power? Okay, good. So we do not know x to the power of 0 is what. Let's just try 1 to the power of 0. 1 to the power of 0 is 1. So we're going to write that down. I think I did that last time in one of the videos. 5 to the power of 0, 1. 723 to the power of 0 is 1. So with only 3 examples, hopefully you can see it. Anything with the power of 0 is equal to just 1. It doesn't matter what's that expression, okay? So long as you have an item, for example, 4 times x to the power of 0, 7 to the power of 0, and y to the power of 2, like this example. 4, nothing attached to it, so it's just stay 4. X to the power of 0 means it turns into a 1. 7 to the power of 0 turns into a 1. Y to the power of 2 stays way over there. So 4 times 1 times 1 is just 4y squared. Okay, it makes your life a little bit easier instead of writing those x to the power of 0. And I think I did that last class, and I said there are two scenarios. If it's x to the power of 1 is going to be, just wait one more time, x to the power of 1 is going to be x. If it's to the power of 1, it's going to stay, 1 to the power of 1 is going to be 1, y to the power of 1 is going to be 5, and so on. So they are the two special cases. So this is pretty much it. This is the very first part of this lesson. We only have to cover the negative and the zero exponents. And zero exponents is very easy, while the negative is something you have to be a little bit more mindful about. Because right after this, once you finish this quiz, we are going to move on to the next section of this chapter. And it's about division. And you will run into quite a few negative exponents, and so it's good to get this idea out before we dive in. And when you're done with this video, go on to Schoology and finish this quiz. Okay,